Hey, what's up guys, Bajheera here. For this video, I'm going to go over my current gemming and reforging on my warrior, and I've switched over to the warrior crit spec. This is nothing groundbreaking, but I do want to just talk to you about it a little bit just in case you're curious, because I know some people are. So, the pros and cons associated with this gemming and reforging setup is, on the one hand, you do have a higher enrage uptime because if your Colossus Smash or Mortal Strike crits, you get enraged. You have potentially huge bursts if you line up crits. It is more DPS in like PvE testing. Gives you a little bit more flashy gameplay as well, with all those crits exploding on your screen. On the other hand, you are not going to hit as hard since you are deciding to trade strength for crit, which goes along with the RNG reliance, which is that if you don't crit, you're not going to be hitting as hard in general. And this is somewhat gear dependent because in order for your crit chance to be high enough to really pay off, you do need a high crit rating, which will go along with you getting gear. But if you decide to give this a try, here's how I set up my warrior for preserving your socket bonuses while optimizing for crit. And rather than read all of the individual stats and gems that I put in all of my gear, because you guys can see this in the video very clearly, if you want to check it out, just make sure it matches up, or you can always check my armory as well, because this setup right here is still what I'm using on my armory. But I'm just going to let you know the general idea behind this. In all of your yellows, you're going to put a full crit strike gem. And if you're a jewel crafter, even though you don't get quite as many stats as if you're going to go with a primary stat gem, you want to max your crit out, so you might as well go ham. So you put two 480 critical strike gems somewhere in your yellow sockets. The rest of them are going to be like 320 crit, and those are called Smooth Sun's Radiance. In your reds, you put an 80 strength and a 160 critical strike gem. That is an orange gem called Inscribed Vermilion Onyx. In your blue gem sockets, you're going to be putting a 160 critical strike, and I put an 80 PvP power in there just because I figured, why not? And that's called a Perfect Radiant Alexandrite. So my meta gem socket's a little bit different because I actually go with a 216 strength and 3% increased critical effect gem, because even though it doesn't have crit on it, the 3% increased critical effect is going to mean all those crits that you're stacking are going to deal more damage, so that's worth it in my mind. And if you'll notice, I'm using one PvP trinket and one PvE trinket. The PvP proc trinket gives you a ton of strength and good PvP power, and the PvE proc trinket not only procs for a huge strength value, it actually gives me expertise, which I then reforged into more critical strike. And there's a lot of sort of strength proc PvE trinkets that you have with a big secondary stat, like maybe it's hit or maybe it's haste, and you can reforge about half of that into crit. So if you are stacking a lot of crit and you can get your hands on one of those trinkets, whether it's from the Shadowpan Assault vendor or from running a few LFRs, you're going to see a huge increase in your critical strike value. Plus, if you're not human, even though I am, you can use the Medallion of the Alliance that gives you a lot of flat crit, so you can see your crit values being very, very high. Keep in mind that if you do use a PvE trinket, due to your item level being scaled down, in PvE you're going to have slightly less crit than is shown in your character page when you're standing in Stormwind or whatever, but for me I think it's only like 0.3% chance to crit, so not a huge deal. These are just going over my talents. My talents have pretty much remained unchanged since the beginning of Mist of Pandaria. I do experiment a little bit with different shouts, but right now Disrupting Shout is my favorite, just because I'm running KFC and we have tons and tons of interrupts, which really puts an opposing healer under a lot of pressure. But you can switch up that shout depending on your comp. Still running Shockwave for sure. We'll have to experiment next patch because Bladestorm is getting quite a significant buff. Still loving Safeguard, although I think I've heard rumors of them changing Intervene to work like Safeguard in terms of it freeing you from roots, so I'm really not sure what the point of Safeguard is. I'll have to get back on PTR and give you guys an update on that one. But yep, still loving my avatar. So not a lot has changed, guys, in terms of my talents at least. I did make a small change to my glyphs. I do kind of want to show that to you. I'm still going with the Death from Above and the Blitz glyph, but I did change to the Mortal Strike glyph from the Bull Rush glyph. I feel like a lot of times when you're fighting higher rated spell cleaves, it's not uncommon for them to try to just tunnel the crap out of you being a warrior. And just that little bit extra healing whenever you got a Mortal Strike applied does make you much tankier. Unfortunately, it makes them hit my Hunter, which isn't very tanky, but it feels good to me to be able to just run in there, tank some damage, and deal damage of my own in return. So that's what I'm working with right now. Just as we take a look at some of the other glyphs that you might want to choose, my overall impression of the crit spec is, it is pretty cool. I mean, I don't really like the idea of dealing less damage overall. I love the idea of being a consistent, strength-based warrior who deals heavy damage all the time and isn't reliant on crits. However, due to the current state of warriors, we really don't deal that much damage. So, in order for us to deal a whole lot of damage, not only do we have to increase our attack power by like 5k or something, which is what the strength build will get you, you need to crit them, and you need to hit them for like twice the damage you normally would in order for that damage to really mean anything. And there have definitely been some arenas where me critting people has made the difference. So take this spec for what you will. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks so much for watching, guys. Peace!